And now, would you please welcome to the stage our next Red Talk presenter, JP Nguyen from SAS. JP.
Good afternoon. So you've just finished lunch, and now you're going to slip into your post-lunch coma. Mix in a little jet lag to my topic, which happens to be XM, or export-imports, and I have a tall hill to climb to try to keep you awake. I trust everyone here knows what XM is. If not, you've probably been living under a rock or haven't been paying attention closely. XM is Raytheon's practice and compliance to the US government when it comes to the shipping of our hardware and technology with our customers around the globe. XM rules and regulations ensures that our technology and know-how doesn't fall into the wrong hands and is our part in safeguarding national security. With nearly a third of our sales coming from an international program, we cannot afford to close our eyes or cover our ears to this topic. In order to be successful in our global growth initiative, we must succeed at integrating XM into our international programs and pursuits. So today, I'm going to share 2 truths and 1 myth about XM, but more on that later. Let me give you some context on my journey from engineering to being up here on stage talking about XM. My passion for working with diverse cultures and learning how to successfully operate in the global market partly stems from my multinational upbringing. My parents were born in Vietnam, speaking Vietnamese, French, and English. They were fortunate enough to get scholarships to go to university in New Zealand and later migrated to the US. They set down roots in California, where my brother and I were both born, and we both got French names. Growing up, we were exposed to different cultures and backgrounds, which laid the foundation of how I view the world today. Out of graduate school, my first job was with a startup, where I had to deploy a solar system in South Africa. It was the first time I traveled internationally for work. It was both exciting and intimidating. I realized what a great privilege it was to travel and meet people of diverse backgrounds and learn different ways of doing business. I joined Raytheon in 2003 as a system engineer in our EO/IR business. 5 years later, I took on a unique role in the business, working for an SAS mission area vice president as his staff executive. When I finished my rotation with him, that VP told me, JP, you're ready. Go be a program manager. It was both encouraging and scary at the same time, but I welcomed the opportunity. I was assigned as the program manager for the F-15 Saudi offset program, where my charter was to stand up an international production facility in Riyadh for 2 of the boxes that make up our F-15 AESA radar. This involved the technical exchange and training of Saudi nationals, defense services, export of hardware, re-import of hardware for system integration, and more trips to Riyadh than I care to recall. Initially, I wondered, where do I begin? Like any good engineer, I started gathering data and talked to key stakeholders. By asking questions, I discovered we were missing a clear, robust process understood by all functions on how to ship hardware. Each function seemed to have bits and pieces of the puzzle, but we lacked an integrated approach. This brings me to my first truth. XM is indeed complex. There were times when I was reviewing my agreements that I sounded like a lawyer, spewing phrases like in furtherance of and provisos. But bringing people to the table to ask questions helps demystify these terms. That's what I did on my F-15 international programs. For so long, XM was that ancillary function that sat distant from our core program teams, only brought in at the last minute when it was time to ship hardware overseas. So we changed that by co-locating XM with our core program teams and listed them on our program org charts. These were 2 very small adjustments that spoke volumes, instantly creating a new team dynamic that stated, XM is important to us. This person is an integral part of our team's success. Next, I had XM present at my program performance reviews, where they'd be required on a weekly basis to status all agreements and licenses. This was a 2-way street. Not only did I expect all team members to actively listen to our XM colleagues, but I asked XM to actively listen to each team member's goals and objectives. This resulted in collaboration. with XM offering solutions to meet our program goals. XM was part of the team and thus invested in our collective success. Conversely, functions understood how they fit in this complex puzzle. My second truth, collaboration allows us to learn from one another. For our team, the next step in our journey was strengthening that collaboration. We established a weekly platform health check, bringing together all F-15 radar program teams from Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Qatar, and Israel. We did this before the consent agreement and before the mandated monthly health checks. Why? We saw great value in bringing together our program teams that were individually working issues because there was untapped potential in sharing of lessons learned across all of our country teams. Not surprisingly, there were common issues and roadblocks, and we used these weekly sessions as a forum to develop solutions. Through reviewing all active agreements for all aspects of compliance, we realized the value of extending it to our strategy and BD teammates to review all their marketing licenses in support of international customer engagements. This had a follow-on effect. All team members at the table became increasingly familiar with XM terms and processes. XM became less scary, and we were incorporating XM into our DNA. This brings me to my next truth. We're done learning about XM once we complete our required training. This is actually my myth. Completing our mandatory LMS training does not make us XM experts. We are on a continuous journey, and we continue to evolve. Our mistakes were hidden opportunities, such as our voluntary disclosures to state. On my programs, I've had a couple. While disappointing from a program execution perspective, we learn a great deal from these mistakes, whether they be gaps in our understanding of the ITAR, gaps in personnel or staffing, or gaps in our tools and processes. We took these findings and incorporated them going forward. The landscape is also changing. While at SAS we built a strong model for executing international programs, the US government changed the playing field on us with the introduction of export control reform. This radically changed how we look at our technology and how we classify it against the ITAR and EAR standards. This required us to go back, assess our practices, often requiring rework and unplanned EAC costs to ensure compliance. So what does this mean going forward? Increased collaboration between program teams is a must. I mentioned our efforts on one platform with different country customers, but we must take it to the next level. It starts by capturing best practices and sharing them across multiple product platforms, such as between F-15 and F-18 international radar programs. Next, ensuring mission areas that share the same international customer but offer different technology solutions have agreements and CONOPS that represent one RTN to the customer. We must cement relationships between the business units, Raytheon International, our in-country teams, so that our agreements provide solutions to our international customers. And with corporate's help, to pull together the good work being done throughout the enterprise. This, in great part, will help demonstrate not only to the US government, but to ourselves, Raytheon, that we can successfully operate in the global market and support our global growth initiative. Now, if you've fallen asleep, now's the time to wake up because I have 3 asks. Number 1, partner. Partner with Global Trade and XM on your international programs. When you proactively develop a strong collaborative working relationship, you can succeed in your program goals. Number 2, integrate. Encourage other team members and functions to integrate with XM. It isn't just about PMO and XM, but engineering, supply chain, finance, communications, and more should be integrating with XM. Number 3, collaborate. Share lessons learned and best practices throughout the enterprise. Ensures the next level of maturity and as we adopt XM into our DNA. Great strides have been made in improving our international capture and execution, but we must be vigilant and adaptable to the changing environment. Thank you very much.